Why did Jesus come to dwell among us? Why did God choose the path of incarnation? These seem like particularly good questions to ask as we wind down the season of Christmastide, the season in which we celebrate the incarnation. And that's exactly what I've been doing for the last several days, using the words of Jesus himself to reflect on why he came among us. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Yesterday we heard Jesus talk of the judgment that comes into the world with the incarnation. We noted that although Jesus proclaims judgment, he himself is not the one who judges. In today's passage from the Gospel of John, we'll follow this thread just a bit further. There's an interesting passage in the 12th chapter of the Gospel of John that seems connected neither to what comes before it or after it, but rather seems to stand alone. It probably serves in the Gospel writer's narrative as a kind of summary of Jesus' ministry. If that's true, it's a pretty good summary. In the verses immediately prior to this passage, Jesus has withdrawn from the Pharisees and actually gone into hiding. Now he speaks, though it is not clear who it is to whom he is speaking, and because he cries out, it seems like he's not in hiding here. Here's how the writer of John puts it. Then Jesus cried aloud, "Whoever believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And whoever sees me sees him who sent me. I have come as light into the world, so that everyone who believes in me should not remain in darkness. I do not judge anyone who hears my word and does not keep them, for I came not to judge, but to save the world. The one who rejects me and does not receive my word has a judge. On the last day, the word that I have spoken will serve as judge, for I have not spoken on my own, but the Father who sent me has himself given me a commandment about what to say and what to speak. And I know that his commandment is eternal life. What I speak, therefore, I speak just as the Father has told me." First of all, the major thing going on here involves the question of who Jesus is, even more than the question of why he has come. And this is an important detail. In the first place, Jesus speaks on behalf of God, as do the prophets. In traditional theology speak, this points to one of the three so-called offices Jesus assumes: prophet, along with his role as priest and as king. But he's actually doing something more here. He's not simply reporting what God has told him. He is himself the embodiment of God's message. His words become the means of knowing the will of God. In other words, he himself is both the messenger and the message. Now, with that piece of context in mind, let's look at the heart of the message. For I came not to judge the world, but to save the world. So, does this amount to a doctrine of universal salvation? Yes and no. It amounts to a doctrine of salvation offered universally, but not necessarily universally received. I know, that sounds like a lot of theological doublespeak, but this is an important thing to keep in mind. It amounts to the same thing we heard from Jesus in John 3:16 and 17. We all remember John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." But we forget that the very next words out of Jesus' mouth are these: "For God sent the Son into the world not to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him." Does that mean there is no longer any judgment? Not at all. As I suggested yesterday, we all stand under judgment, and there will be a universal judgment at the last day. But what Jesus does for us believers is make sure we are counted as righteous, even though we really aren't. But what about the rest of the world? That's the mystery, isn't it? I am not what you would call a thoroughgoing universalist. I do believe that there are limits to salvation. but it doesn't keep me from hoping and praying for the eventual salvation of all. Tomorrow, we wrap up this discussion with one of the most important reasons Jesus came. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.